Joining me now is investigative journalist and author and talk show host in his own right, Alex Newman, whose program we also carry here. He's at libertysentinel.org, libertysentinel.org. Alex, welcome back to the broadcast. Thanks for being with us.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me, Brandon.
Alex, I want to get to your article here in a moment about the United Nations. Here's the headline: UN targets homeschoolers through human rights scheme. Something we have to worry about here in America as well. But before we get to that, I want to talk to you real quick about what Annie Cyrus and I talked about at the 1 o'clock hour Central Time today. And that is something she, and I think you and I also warned about together early in 2025. And that was look for the targeting of Jews, look for that to continue, but look for them to then begin to specifically target Christians, right? And so now we have this Brown University student who has been murdered. Here's the LifeSite News. Brown University shooting victim, Ella Cook, remembered as a conservative Christian. We also have reason to believe that maybe she or someone else in that classroom was being specifically targeted. We also have, and we'll get to that in a moment, then we have a headline here, church from the New York Post. Church-going woman suffered severe burns in random toxic chemical attack while walking at the park. Okay? This Annie said, look, this is an Islamic tactic. Throwing acid on women is an Islamic thing. Whether the guy is Islamic, we don't know. But what we were talking about today was the black-green axis. We used to talk about the red-green, the red being the Marxist, the green being the Islamist. She's warning now about what Iran came up with years ago, a black-green axis, which is the black is now being replaced by the red. The red was just really the Marxist. Now the black is anybody that hates America. Anybody that's against the system, that means the capitalist system, the burn down the system. Then we add that to a group we talked about today, and that is the Turtle Island Liberation Front, which I've written an article about them today. I don't know if we were able to send that over to you or not. Were we able to send that to you, Alex?
I haven't seen it yet, no.
Okay. I wrote an article this morning and researched on that. Let me see if I can bring it up real quick from our own website here. But it is, and I'll just tell you about it. This is you've been probably following this group. They supposedly were going to carry out multiple terrorist attacks on New Year's Eve. They've been stopped. They're being reported mostly as a pro-Palestinian group. Here's the New York Post. What is Turtle Island Liberation Front, the extremist anti-government group whose offshoot planned a New Year's Eve terror attack? It says here they're about the little-known pro-Palestinian, anti-law enforcement, anti-government extremist group. A reality is pro-Palestinian is just one segment. They're really more of a Marxist group from what I can see. And I brought up the Weather Underground, their manifesto from 1974 called Prairie Fire. Interesting, in 1974, this domestic terrorist group was promoting the Palestinian Liberation Organization. This group was praising Mao Zedong. This group's talking about burning down the capitalist system. This group is talking about Americans being, colonizers, right? Taking land from people. This is what this Turtle Island group, and the term Turtle Island, I guess, refers to all of North America, which I explained in my article today at Worldview Times, fits with La Raza, the race, that group that says California, New Mexico, Arizona, all need to go back to Mexico. Then you add in the Weather Underground. Then you add in the movie that came out earlier this year we talked about with Leonardo DiCaprio, One Battle After, which, if I remember correctly, was about basically a Marxist group, if you will, going after ICE and bombings. Now we have a group that apparently was going to be involved in all of this on New Year's Eve. And the reason I bring all that up is it seems as though we are now in that window where there's going to be more terrorist attacks in America, much of it perhaps by domestic actors who are foreign inspired or foreign funded or even foreign trained, going out, coming back in, but also specifically targeting Christians with what appears to be the targeting of Ella Cook at Brown University, the targeting of this woman who was as the New York Post said, church-going woman, suffered severe attack. Now we're going to go after homeschooling families. That's Christians. You notice a trend here, Alex?
Yeah, and this is not new, Brandon. Back in 2017, the Director of Policy and Planning, Rich Higgins, on the National Security Council, warned in a brilliant memo to Donald Trump that he was facing what he described in the document as a Maoist-style insurgency. And he warned Trump that it would be catastrophic to understand this as just regular politics. This is not regular politics. What you have here is a convergence of all these different organizations, the globalists, communist, socialist, jihadist, as you pointed out, basically any group that wants to destroy America. All coming together. And he said in the memo, they weren't just interested in destroying the United States as a nation. He said, really, the goal was destroying the United States as an ideal. And I think we're watching now the next phase of that, where they're starting to come out of the closet. They're starting with targeted assassinations. They're starting with terrorist attacks. They're starting with the shooting at our law enforcement agencies and even attacking random people. It was in the news out in California recently, Brandon, you and I discussed that just people who had American flags flying in front of their house were getting nasty messages from left-wing terrorists saying, all I want for Christmas is a Nazi's head on a platter. These are terroristic threats being made. And I think what we're watching here now is the early stages of an engineered civil war. A lot of these dumb leftists, these radical college students with their purple hair that joined Antifa, they are cannon fodder, right? They are being weaponized and manipulated into believing that Trump is some sort of fascist dictator and that basically humanity requires them to now stand in the gap and shoot Nazis, which would be basically anybody who disagrees with them, anybody who does believe in restoring our country. The jihadists, of course, have been mass imported into our country. And I always remind people, because obviously Islam is a threat in and of itself, but I think it's always important for people to remember how many Muslims were involved in the parliaments of European governments or in our Congress when they decided to open up our borders wide. Well, the answer is virtually none, right? The reason they have the communists and the globalists have mass imported Islamists into our country is to use them as cannon fodder in the war against the West, in the war against what used to be called Christendom. So I do believe we're in the early stages of this. I think it's already started, and I think it's going to get worse if the Trump administration doesn't succeed in diffusing this time bomb before it goes off.
Let me go to an audio clip of Mark. I think this is Mark Halperin talking about, the targeting perhaps of this. His sources are saying that this young Christian gal from Alabama going to Brown University was targeted, according to sources. Listen to this. Which sounds like Charlie Kirk kind of thing, right? Here we go.
That the family of I just need to look up her name. I apologize.
Ella Cook, I think.
Thank you.
Mark.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. That the family of Ella Cook, the Alabama young woman who was a sophomore, has been told that she was the target of what happened at Brown. I have no idea whether that's true. There's other theories about why the person did what they did, but now that we don't know who the assailant is, it's going to be harder to say. But if it's true that she was targeted, that's a big story because she was one of the most visible conservatives on that campus. Don't know that it's true. But probably most of you don't even know that that's being alleged because you'd have to follow certain accounts on X or have sources, as I do, who are telling me that. So, Amber, if she was targeted, and again, we don't know that, but if she were targeted, what would the implications of that be?
Well, I'll start with a couple of things that I think lend credence to that theory, which is one, typically when we see mass school shooters, they don't just stop and walk away, right? Usually they keep going until they're apprehended by police, shot dead, or they kill themselves.
Yeah. Amber,
in this case,
let me just stop you.
Yep.
I should have been clear. She was the number 2 person at the Young Republicans branch on Brown's campus. So that's why some people are concerned if she were targeted. Go ahead, Amber. I apologize.
Right. Well, and the other thing is, if the police are telling Brown students that they are safe, they don't have to shelter in place anymore, but they don't have a suspect in custody, I think that also suggests that this was some kind of targeted attack. Sadly, I wouldn't be surprised. When I was on campus at Georgetown, I was chair of the college Republicans. I had to report multiple threats against me in my final 2 years on campus.
So isn't it interesting? Talk about this, will you, on a national level? I mean, you have sources, I have sources that tell me that there are actually groups out there that have lists. And the guys like you and I and others like Annie and a lot of our broadcast partners are on this list. And there may be multiple groups with multiple lists. Tell me about that.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. I've been hearing that for years. And if you follow some of the crazy left-wing social media sites like Blue Sky and Mastodon, what you'll find is they've even been caught posting lists of people they want to take out. People within the Trump administration, people within conservative media, people within conservative organizations. So I think what we saw with Charlie Kirk, what we may have just seen with Ella at Brown University, what we've seen with some of the targeting of ICE people, what we've seen with the targeting of people like Senator Nancy Schaefer, I think we're probably going to see more of that, right? There are hostile special forces operators in this country already, from hostile communist dictatorships. Some come from Venezuela, some come from Cuba, some come from China. You've got highly trained jihadists from different countries, Sudan and Somalia and Afghanistan, running around this country. And they have orders. Right? And a lot of them right now are just minding their own business. They're working as, bellhops. They're working as busboys at restaurants. They don't even have a parking ticket. Their instructions are just keep your head down, make a little bit of money, live in this apartment. And when your orders come, that's when you're activated. That's when you go start knocking people off of the list that you're supposed to be taking out. And I think there's a number of reasons for this. I mean, for one, they want to terrorize Americans into silence. They want everybody to be scared to say anything. This is an age-old tactic, right? Just terrorize everybody into silence, terrorize everybody into submission. For two, I think they want to provoke a hostile response. I think there is a deliberate effort to try to, and we saw a little bit of this in the early stages after Charlie Kirk was murdered. A lot of people saying, all right, the gloves are off, now it's time to shoot back. Who are you going to shoot back at, right? And I think that's part of the goal, to just provoke and enrage. And I think we may even see false flag attacks, right? People blamed who may not have been even involved, just in an effort to sow confusion, to sow chaos. And so what I would urge people is to be in prayer about this. We want to maintain lawful authority. If somebody says, hey, civil war broke out, now you got to join this militia with, Billy Bob and the pickup truck at the front. No, right? We have sheriffs in this country. We have governors in this country. We have lawful command structures, and we don't want to undermine that, and we don't want to be duped into following some Yahoo leader who may be an operative for who knows what, who may be trying to advance his own agenda. So there's a lot going on here, Brandon, and I think when you combine it with all the other stuff they've been working on, all the stuff that the World Economic Forum refers to as a poly crisis that they're cooking up, the financial destruction of the United States, the implosion of the everything bubble, people are going to be desperate. People are going to be confused. People are going to be crying out. And I think we're headed for a very dangerous time. So I would just urge people, don't be fearful. God did not give you a spirit of fear, but be aware, be in the know about what's going on. And part of that is staying informed. Part of that is taking prudent precautions, not out of paranoia, again, not out of fear, but out of a sense of love for our neighbors, for our families, for our wives, for our children. We just need to take prudent precautions. And if you don't know good people in your community, now would be a really good time to start working on that. Try to get to know your sheriff, try to get to know your mayor, your police chief, try to get to know the people in your community who will ultimately be responding if things get out of control. And we want to make sure we have good people in those positions. We want to make sure that they are educated. That's one of the reasons we've been doing the law enforcement intelligence brief for so many years. Unfortunately, our local law enforcement does not have a lot of good intelligence anymore from the federal government. And so we need to make sure that our sheriffs and our police chiefs are aware of what's going on. And who knows how much time we may have or not, but now would be a good time to get ready.
Indeed. There's an article on a website, a news website, talking about AI. And I thought it's very interesting. He closes out the article, because you just brought up AI and the big bust. He says, an epic AI-led stock market crash and the debt implosion would wipe out most of what's reckoned wealth in America, plunging the nation into a depression. If the Genesis mission makes the government a financial partner of the AI industry, that's Trump's Genesis plan, or the industry is deemed too big to fail, taxpayers will be stuck with the tab. Many of AI's promoters are on board with "you'll own nothing and be happy" world our rulers envision. A crash would fit right with their beyond Orwellian agenda to impoverish and enslave America. Thus, they might regard this bubble that must inevitably pop as an AI feature, not a bug. What do you make of that?
Yeah, and I think on an even more significant level, I think the crash that they are preparing, and I think the AI bubble may well be a big part of that, is going to be blamed on Donald Trump, and not just on Donald Trump as a person, but on the policies, or at least the perceived policies that he's been promoting. Lower or get rid of income taxes, restore free market capitalism, let's have deregulation. I mean, these things are all good in and of themselves, but if they get the blame for these,
after a gunman walked into an
that's my fault.
No problem. But if those ideas, free market capitalism, biblical principles, get the blame for the coming crash that was literally engineered by the opposite of that, the central banking cabal, the huge government, the out-of-control spending and borrowing, that would be very, very unfortunate. But I think that's the plan. An economic crisis is baked into the cake. There is no way around it now. I mean, the last economic crisis, we just kind of kicked the can down the road a little further by papering over it and printing a bunch of money. There is an economic reckoning coming, and it's going to be brutal. People are going to lose a lot of money. If you're really fortunate, you'll take a big haircut. You and I, Brandon, have talked a little bit about the Great Taking. They plan to take all of our securities. So, depending on how far they go, it could be really, really difficult. And if they can forever blame Trump and capitalism, the free market, it's going to be very, very bad. And I think that's their plan ultimately. So we've got to watch for this. Yes, I think the AI bubble is huge, but I think even more than just the AI bubble, we're dealing with the possible destruction of the U.S. dollar. We're dealing with an international market crisis far beyond just AI and even real estate, but into every sector that you can think of, combined maybe with hyperinflation. So I think we're headed for some very stormy economic waters, and people need to be paying attention.
And this is at a time when today we have gold at over $4,300 an ounce. Silver's been bouncing around $64, breaking through it, coming back down, breaking through it, coming back down. I mean, who would have thought $64 silver? I mean, a lot of us did. But,
we did.
But here it is. I mean, we're thinking $100, $200 silver eventually. But here we are, $64, right? Okay, let's go to an article by you over at libertysentinel.org. UN targets homeschoolers through human rights scheme. And this really goes with the goal of the power elite, the globalist, to target Christians. Remember, the Frankfurt School said the source of all suffering and oppression is Christianity and capitalism. And we began this conversation talking about the targeting now of Christians, not just Jews, but the targeting of Christians, perhaps the targeting and assassination, specifically because people are conservative Christians or upholding Christian values, trying to spark some kind of civil war. Again, I think they're trying to get the patriots and the constitutionalists and the conservatives to fall into a trap and go out there, as you warned about, and do something, which, again, people should be leery of that trap. But let's go to this one now. Well, let's go after the homeschoolers. Tell me about this, because this is the UN, but how do you see this playing out in America?
Well, this is a huge story. I'm amazed that it hasn't gotten more attention, Brandon, because UNESCO, the UN education agency, just put out a report just a few weeks ago. I've written on it extensively. It's in the New American Magazine. People can go read that. It's in the Epoch Times. I did a big one, and we've got it on my website as well. This report by UNESCO is very, very clear. A lot of times they'll beat around the bush and kind of try to conceal what they're saying, or at least say it in an indirect way. They're very blunt here. Homeschooling, if it's going to be allowed at all, must be very tightly regulated and controlled by government, to the point where they're going to do mandatory home visits, mandatory testing, where the content will have to be aligned with UN values. They specifically diss the fact that mothers do most of the homeschooling. They say this perpetuates negative gender stereotypes, and so that's really bad. They talk about mandatory testing so that they can control everything that's taught. It's very, very alarming. And you would think that this would be a joke, but it's actually not. If you read the acknowledgments page, it was prepared under the supervision of the policy chief at the education section of UNESCO. And it turns out the guy is literally a North Korean communist. He went to school in North Korea, born in North Korea, got a college degree from North Korea, served in the North Korean education ministry, and then moved over to UNESCO, where now he says that international human rights law requires governments to either ban homeschooling or control it so tightly as to make it essentially government school at home. And then just a couple of days ago, the New York Times dropped a massive opinion piece where it's a weird story. Some guy had kind of a weird experience homeschooling growing up. And now he's saying the federal government needs to impose strict controls on home education. You need to basically submit yourself and your family to state oversight if you want to be able to homeschool. They should be testing. They should be showing up at your house. So this is all coordinated. It's very coordinated. As you know, Brandon, because I spoke to you from while I was down there in Brazil at the UN Climate Summit, they know nobody's buying this anymore. They're beating a dead horse. But the heart of their strategy, UNESCO had an event there called Greening Education. And they said, really, the key to the global warming issue is to brainwash the next generation. And the head of UNESCO's education section said, it's not enough to just teach them about climate change so that they understand climate change. We must move them to action. So the UN itself is telling you that their agenda to undermine national sovereignty, deindustrialize the Western world, steal all your freedom under the guise of saving the climate, it all runs right through the classroom. It depends on them capturing the hearts and minds of your children. But as long as you have millions of American children in Oklahoma and Texas and Florida and South Carolina and other states being educated at home, getting a good, solid Christian education, learning logic and history and science, their agenda is at risk. And so they're now just coming out of the closet and saying, you can't keep doing that. We're going to tell you what to do, when to do, how to do it. And if you don't like it, you're violating the human rights of your child, and we will destroy you.
And how do you think certain states like my state of Tennessee, your state of Florida, are going to handle this?
Well, this is a touchy subject, and people always get mad at me when I talk about it. So don't shoot the messenger, but I've got the UN documents proving this. Their plan is to give you free money to buy your compliance. And I tell people, just think about it like putting cheese in a mousetrap. Right? The mouse doesn't know better. He sees cheese and it's free. It's, oh, free cheese. And then you go and you get the cheese and boom, now you're trapped in the mousetrap. You can't get out. That is the UNESCO plan for bringing us all under control, and I've got the documents proving it. In 2022, they put out the Global Education Monitoring Report, and the whole purpose of it was to figure out how to have the government take control of what they call non-state education providers. And the answer is very simple. We'll give them free tax money, and then we'll tell them what to do. We'll impose non-discrimination in hiring and admissions. We'll impose testing requirements. We'll enforce curricular mandates. We will force them to obey the standards that we choose. And so that's what they're planning to do in the Republican states, where they couldn't, the political class here could not just come out and say, oh, we're going to take away your freedom to homeschool. We're going to spy on you as you homeschool. We're going to treat you as guilty until proven innocent. And so they say, oh, we're just going to give you free money. And then in exchange, we are conservatives, right? We all recognize you don't just hand out public money willy-nilly. You got to have some accountability. We don't want the money being used to, say, create madrasas that are going to teach children jihad, do we? Well, no. So, of course, we got to have some controls over where that money is going. And before long, they will control what you do in your homeschool if you're allowed to homeschool. So that's their plan. It's going to take longer, obviously, in Florida and Tennessee and Texas and Oklahoma than it will in New York or Illinois or whatever. But they have a plan for us, and they've been very, very clear about how they're going to go about that.
So anything you want to tell us about the COP 30? How did it end, by the way?
Well, they unveiled, and I don't know if I got to share this with you, Brandon, but they unveiled the guardian spirit of the COP, and it was a big statue. If Logan's there, you can go to my X page. You'll see I've got the photo of this guardian spirit pinned to the top. It is a hideous creature. The CCP donated it. They said it was the fusion of the Chinese dragon spirit with the Brazilian jaguar spirit coming together. And there it is right there for those who are watching us. You see the guardian spirit there. And you see it is supposed to be a dragon jaguar guardian spirit. It actually looks like a demon to me with the big devil horns and the sharp fangs and clutching the whole world in his hands, and the peace doves are flying off like, get me out of here. So that was the official guardian spirit of the COP. And I think it was a perfect summary of what was going on there, Brandon. A lot happened. The final agreement included a carbon budget where they said we've already burned through 4/5 of our carbon budget. And obviously the U.S. has used more than its fair share, so we'll leave a lot for China and India and Brazil. They came up with a side agreement to phase out fossil fuels. 86 plus governments agreed to that. A lot of close U.S. allies signed the Declaration on Information Integrity to censor us. But for me, one of the big stories, and we've got a cover story on this in the next issue of the New American, so I hope people will stay tuned for that. Get a subscription if you're not subscribed yet. For me, the big story was how we're watching in slow motion now the repaganization of the world. One of the big themes was indigenous knowledge and wisdom is the key to saving the climate. And so they had all these Indians, indigenous peoples from the Amazon rainforest come in there with the headdresses, and they're literally like opening up UN events with prayers to the forest spirits and the river spirits and the rock spirits. And apparently Mother Earth and Father Sky are very mad at us for not caring about our carbon footprint. And so now we need to somehow placate these deities. And the underlying superstition here is that Christianity is the cause of all environmental problems. This was articulated very clearly back in the 60s by Lynn White, professor at Stanford, Yale, or Princeton, and UCLA. He argued that Christianity was anthropocentric. You know, we have this crazy idea that God created us in his image. We have this crazy idea from Genesis that he gave the earth to man, that we are to have dominion over the fish and the seas and the land and the animals. Can't have that. And that's the reason, he said, for the ecological crisis. And so now, very clearly, for the UN, the solution is all the religions of the world unite, and we move back toward a pagan understanding where humans are kind of like cockroaches. We're just one part of this, wonderful Mother Earth goddess of Gaia, and it's irresponsible for us to sin through carbon emissions, but we can offset our sins. We can buy carbon indulgences. If we give them enough money, we can apparently break our way out of purgatory, which is what Bill Gates does. So there's a very dark spiritual agenda here. There's a very dangerous political and economic agenda, and I would encourage people to get informed on this. Yes, the Trump administration boycotted the summit, and that may or may not have been a good move, but they were pleased with this. In fact, multiple bigwigs at this summit said, hey, it's great that Trump's not here. Then he can't be a disturbance. He can't block agreement by consensus. So that's their plan. They're sticking to it. Brainwashing your children, they said openly over and over again, is the key to the success of their strategy. And so if you don't want a one world political, totalitarian, economic, and religious system to emerge out of this, or at least if you don't want it to emerge with your consent, you better start getting informed on this, and you better start speaking out.
Absolutely. Let me give that quote you mentioned by Lynn White. Here it is. Look, quote, what we do about ecology depends on our ideas of the man-nature relationship. More science and more technology are not going to get us out of the present ecological crisis until we find a new religion or rethink our old one. As we now recognize somewhat over a century ago, science and technology join to give mankind powers which are out of control. If so, Christianity bears a huge burden of guilt. Our science and technology have grown out of Christian attitude towards man's relationship to nature. No new set of basic values has been accepted in our society to displace those of Christianity. Hence, we shall continue to have a worsening ecological crisis until we reject the Christian axiom that nature has no reason for existence save to serve man. By destroying pagan animism, Christianity made it possible to exploit nature in a mood of indifference to the feelings of natural objects. The spirits in natural objects, which formerly had protected nature from man, evaporated. In quote, that pagan animism for the new viewer is the idea of spirit beings, as he just described later, in creation. Think of Mother Earth, Gaia, Earth worship, Father Sky, right? Pantheism, all is God. Panentheism, God is in all. Which you see, by the way, in a lot of Disney films and other films, you see that kind of concept or taught. Native American paganism teaches that as well.
Exactly. And, people need to understand this. This is a really significant part of what's happening here. This is an effort to repaganize the world, to eliminate the influence of the biblical worldview on the planet, to undermine Christian civilization to the point where it can be collapsed into the New World Order. And it all runs right through these climate summits, folks. The climate isn't like a sideshow. It is the foundational pretext for this entire edifice of global tyranny that they are building. And the only reason you're not hearing about it is because they know Americans don't believe it. And the more they talk about it, the more mad Americans get, and the more likely they are to call their congressman and to demand an end to this foolishness. So pay attention, folks. It's not a future hypothetical threat. It's here now, and they're still making progress even under the presidency of Donald Trump.
So in closing, what do you see coming for 2026? Based on all the trends, what do you see coming for 2026?
I think it's going to be a wild ride, Brandon. I think we're very likely to see escalating unrest, escalating amounts of violence in our streets, serious economic problems. I don't know whether they'll pull the plug on the economy in 2026, but I think it's possible. I think anytime between now and 2028 is very likely. But I think we're going to see escalating amounts of chaos and maybe even the unveiling of this poly crisis that they've been talking about for so long, where you deal with some combination of major crises, public health, economic, civil war, possibly even Third World War. So I think we're moving in that direction, and I think 2026 is going to bring us closer to many of those things, if not into the hottest part of the action.
And you saw the cover, of course, of The Economist magazine.
Yo, The Economist. Yep, we talked about it. Unbelievable.
Let me show it again real quick for those who didn't see it. Let's see here. They have, where'd the cover go, guys? Let me go back one. Here it is. Oh, yeah, right. Okay, all that garbage they put over there. But anyway, there it goes. What you see is, I don't know if Logan's got a better one. I don't want to try a free trial, guys. But what you see there is, you see a chart right where the swords are. It looks like a dollar chart. It even has Lincoln on the coins, and then all the money falling down off the chart. So it looks like they're predicting maybe a dollar collapse in their issue cover for the World Ahead 2026. I mean, I'm just reading what's on the. You've probably studied this now since we've talked about it, right?
Yeah, it sure looks like it, Brandon. And, you go back and you look at the Economist magazine cover back in 1988, I believe it was, where you had the burning pile of dollars giving way to this phoenix and the one world currency. Folks, they're getting ready to pull the plug on the U.S. economy and the U.S. dollar. So be as ready as you can be spiritually and physically and financially.
Yeah, there's the cover of the Economist magazine from back in 1988.
Yeah,
and it's the phoenix rising out of a pile of burning world currencies. Do you think
get ready for world currency?
You think Trump is going to lose the midterms big time?
Historically, the party in power always gets pummeled in the midterm immediately after the presidential election. So whatever the president's party is historically has been punished. He's got a very narrow margin in the House, very narrow margin in the Senate. So I think there's a good chance the Republican Party loses the Congress, especially with so many Republicans demoralized about some of what Trump is doing. It's going to be difficult already to overcome, just historical trends. So I would expect that we're probably, unless we get the voting fraud fixed, I would expect that we're probably going to see some pretty big wins for Democrats.
And even so, Lord Jesus, quickly come, and night shall be no more, because it's really ramping up, right?
Yeah.
All right,
Absolutely.
We pray for your safety as well as that of all of our broadcast partners, because, in conclusion here, Alex, Annie Cyrus and I have already seen certain people that used to be out here with us talking very hard on Islam and accurately on Islam. They've added to their family. Some of them have gotten married, had children, and everybody has got to do what they feel called to do. But some of our colleagues over the years, they've disappeared. They're gone. They've decided it's too hot. It's just the potential risk is too high. Do you join me in seeing that trend? And do you think we're going to see a continuing trend where certain people just stop talking, kind of go into a whole different line of work and kind of disappear?
Yeah, and I've noticed the same thing, Brandon, and I think we're going to see more of it. And I think that really puts them in a place where they're winning, right? The evildoers, they want to scare us into submission. They want to silence us by intimidating us and making us fearful. And I think that was one of the reasons why we all got to see Charlie Kirk's assassination over and over again on endless loop on every social media channel. I think it's why when they murdered Gary Webb, the journalist, they did it so brazenly with 2 bullets to the head and called it a suicide. I think they are trying to scare all of us into silence, and that should motivate us, I think, even more to speak loudly and truthfully with love.
Indeed. LibertySentinel.org. Here is his website right here. libertysentinel.org. Alex Newman, broadcaster, journalist, and talk show host. Thank you, Alex.
Thanks for having me, Brandon. Really appreciate it.
You too, my friend. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you as well.
We'll be right back after this short break, folks.